Good day, Knicks Nation. I did a video earlier this morning about it was a general video about players that can play in New York and that can't play in New York. And that wasn't specific to anything. I was really reacting to some of the comments that Kevin Durant was making in the media. But now let's get back to business with the Knicks. Right now, I want to discuss the New York Knicks and a modern elite defense. Okay. Now, a lot of Knicks fans, and I also agree, we need some shooters. Definitely need some shooters on the offensive end because the league is now obviously 3-point driven. So you have to be able to take a certain number of 3-pointers per game. You do at least 30 something 3-pointers a game. And of course, you got to hit as big a percentage of them as you can. And you want to have shooters that can knock down that 3-point shot. So just to be able to be competitive in the NBA, you need to have 3-point shooters. There's no question about that. And I believe the Knicks are going to address that. Now, that's not all that an elite offense has, but we got to start somewhere. So yes, we need shooters. And between the free agent market and the draft, I believe the Knicks are going to address that need in terms of obtaining some shooters to give RJ, who should be our number one option this year, and part of our development and part of his development. He should be our number one option to give him some space, to create the spacing that he would need to slash, and to create opportunities for others because he's a good playmaker as well off the dribble. But that's the offense. But long term, in terms of building a long-term winner, so again, I want the Knicks to be a perennial threat to win the championship. Okay? Like right now, any team, for example, that LeBron is on is a threat to win the championship. The Miami Heat is just made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And we shouldn't be surprised at that because of the way they structure is, and their defense especially is structured. They're always in the hunt. They're going to make the playoffs. Question is how far they're going to go, right? So we shouldn't be surprised that they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, although it's a breakout year for a lot of their players. We want to be in that conversation. We want to be in the Houston Rocket conversation, in the Laker or the Clipper conversation. Whereas it's not a question we're going to be in the playoffs. The question is how can we go all the way? We want to be that team, okay? So to start that, to begin that, and of course we're not anywhere near that right now, but you have to start somewhere. And the greatest teams start with a foundation of solid defense, okay? And rebounding, of course, and defense. So that in other words, you can lock up a team and they only get one shot. And that's over. The Knicks used to be like that, which brings me to the point today. I've heard some people question whether Tom Thibodeau is able to coach in the modern era. This is an absurd question. It's stupid. It is. It's just plain dumb. Number one, Tom Thibodeau did coach in the modern era. His Chicago Bulls teams were in the modern era. Okay. Now he also coached in the 90s. He was an assistant to Jeff Van Gundy and Pat Riley on the Knicks. And yes, the game has changed. Let's talk about on the defensive end how the game has changed from the 90s just very quickly. First of all, in the 90s, the 3-point shot was not as prominent as it is now. In the 90s, it was more important to get into the paint. Therefore, and in the 90s, of course, the way the rules were, you could hand check guys. You could use your elbow, you could use your forearm to be on a player. And of course, on the post down low on the front line, it was almost like a wrestling match, for post position. It was much more physical. Okay. Now they've changed the rules. All right. So that you can't even, on the outside, you can't even touch a guy. And then, on the post, and you can see it in the playoffs, guys banging on the post, the ref's not even letting them battle for position. Somebody's going to be called for an offensive or defensive foul, 7 times out of 10. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's the way it is. So that in the 90s, you wanted your post players, your Patrick Ewings, your Larry Johnsons, your Xavier McDonald's, your Charles Oakleys. They had to be physical. They had to be strong. You couldn't have no weak guy down there because he was going to get pushed out. But today, because of the change of the rules And because of the way the game has changed in terms of the development of the three-point shot, your defensive players need to use more athleticism on defense than just brute strength. In fact, athleticism is the name of the game. Okay. So what do you need versus in the past, you might have needed a guy that could battle on the low block and control his position. Now you need guys that can cover ground, that can get from one part of the court to another extremely quickly so that you can double a player. So for example, you watch the playoffs, when Murray got hot for Denver or when Harden gets hot for Houston, what teams do? What they try to do is get the ball out their hands. That's try. So you double them or you put pressure on them so that they have to pass the ball. Now, when they do that, of course, when somebody doubles a player like that, that leaves somebody open. So what the defense has to be able to do is show double strong enough and quick enough so the player gets rid of the ball, but then recover to cover everybody quick enough. You understand? And then in a lot of sets, you got to show like you're going to block, you're going to help your teammate at the point of attack, especially coming down the lane to block a point guard or somebody from getting penetration. But at the same time, you got to be able to get back out on the 3-point shooter, sprint out there very quickly. So athleticism and speed becomes the name of the game on defense. And not only that, you want to have what we call, what you guys know, a rim protector. Rim protection is important because it's athleticism now. So if you could get a defense with some speed, athleticism in it, and they can cover ground very quickly, and then behind you, you got a rim protector, now you have the makings of an elite defense. And all the best teams have that. Okay, they have that. So, with the New York Knicks, we have the foundations of that right now. Even in the midst of the rubble, that is our team, we have foundations of that. We have Mitchell Robinson, and one of the best things to happen, if you remember Mitchell Robinson's rookie year, he was committing a lot of silly fouls. Rookies do that, especially athletic rookies at center. They do that. Okay, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that the refs are not going to give them no calls because they're rookies. And then they're anxious. So that's, people still acting like that's still Mitchell Robinson. He doesn't do that like that no more. He's much smarter now. Number one. But during his rookie year, during the course of the year, the Knicks traded for the center from Brooklyn. He was from the Clippers, and he was defensive player of the year. I forgot his name, Andre something. But he helped Mitchell Robinson a lot because he was helping Mitchell Robinson on little things like a center calls out the defense. They call out when there's a pick. They call out when the ball is swinging. They call out who is supposed to guard where you're supposed to be. The center does that. The 5 guy is supposed to do that. He started learning to do that his rookie year, and he does it very well now. This past season, the problem was, for example, he would call out stuff, and this is why, again, I'm not hating Julius Randle. In a right situation, he'd be a good player, but on defense, he just didn't care. My friends, I gotta be honest. Look at the film. He just didn't care. Okay? So Mitchell Robinson would be calling him to go cover somebody, and he'd look and not go. Or the Knicks would want to show a double team, and he would go do the double team, but he would not sprint back. And so when he go to do double team, he'd leave the man open that would be open, and that's who the other team would find. See, he just didn't care. And if I got to get a coach, you're getting paid $60 million, and I got to get a coach to put a foot in your behind because you don't care on defense, I don't need you. You understand what I'm saying? So Mitchell Robinson, as I mentioned before, he covers ground from the extreme part, like under the basket, to the corners or to the top of the key, faster than anybody, definitely faster than anybody in the NBA today. Definitely. Okay. Frank Ntilikina. See, people talk about a 7-foot wingspan. That's only good if you know how to use it. And defensively is where you use it. Frank's footwork on defense is elite. If you're watching basketball and you know basketball, you have to notice that his footwork is elite on the defensive end. And he knows how to use those 7-foot wingspan arms of his to disrupt the opposing point guard. He knows how to do it. He's done it to James Harden, Stephen Curry, Russell Westbrook. He's done it to Paul George. He's locked up just about every good player in this league Frank has met them and dealt with them, and they know he's good. Okay, so you have a foundation there. R.J. Barrett has the ability and the desire. Now, he's a rookie last year, so he didn't look as good last year. And that's another thing. Rookies got to get used to the sets, get used to how it's moving, because the game is much. See, that's another thing. A lot of y'all talking about these guys you like in the draft. The NBA game is much faster than any other game on the planet. Than the college game, than the Australian game, than the European game. The NBA speed is much faster. Okay? You ever hear about a player developing because the game has slowed down for them? That means they're getting used to the speed of the NBA game and they're reacting in the right way. Not everybody does. Okay. RJ Barrett, of course he will, because he's got that talent. It's there. So I already expected him to be a good defensive player just because of the desire, the talent, the attitude, and he's a strong boy. His ability, one of his natural traits that he had is his body is just strong. He's a strong, that boy comes from Jamaica, right? Just saying. But he's strong though. That boy's strong. Okay. And, his family's from Jamaica. He came from Canada, but he West Indian. Strong, man, like Ewing was. He's a strong kid. And that strength, that body, he's willing to put it out there and use it. Okay. On a defensive and offensive end. So you got that core right there. All right. Kevin Knox, first year was a disaster defensively, but I saw some improvement this past season. His stats wasn't as good, but he cared more. He was trying more and he was learning to use his length. That's a learning process. He was learning to use his length because he got tremendous length. Now, I'm expecting him to improve much more under Tom Thibodeau this year. I think all y'all talking negative, talking about trading Knox for a bag of chips or some stupidness. You don't trade Kevin Knox. You're going to be sorry you said that after this season, because he's going to be all right. Okay. Under Tibbs, I can see this guy with Kenny Payne there. He's going to get much better on the defensive end. You're going to see something. Okay. Cause he's got the ability. He just needs to learn. Okay. And y'all don't give him a chance to do that. So speed, the ability to have all the players move in unison like they're on a string, the ability to cover ground and to make sure you're covered, and then to leave open players that you don't need to worry about because they can't shoot. You don't want, for example, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard killing you on the Clippers, right? You want somebody else shoot. If Zubac can shoot the three, let him shoot it. That's what you want, right? Or, that's why they got Lou Williams coming off the bench, because he could hit it. Or Larry Shamet, because they can hit it, because you can't just lock up PG and Kawhi, because you leave some of these other guys open, they'll kill you. See, that's what makes a good team. That's part of what makes them what they are. But you want the weakest guy shooting that ball, right? You want the weakest guy shooting it. So, or a guy that's lacking confidence, a guy that might be scared or whatever. That's what good defenses do. So I'm saying we need to draft players and to acquire players, not just shooters. I'm not saying we don't need them, but a guy like a Vassell that you can plug and play because he's already got talent on the defensive end. When you get a guy that's coming into the league and knows how to play defense, you want that guy. Okay. You want him, which is why I say let's accumulate as many draft picks as we can. Okay. Cause you're going to want shooters and you're going to want defenders. Okay. You want Vassell's a defender, Okoro's a defender. Now we know Obi Toppin is not at this point. I happen to believe just because the boy is 22 that he doesn't have any upside. He got upside. He got more room to grow and get better. And that's the thing about Obi Toppin y'all got to remember. Because he is 22, he going to come in the league killing people on offense. He is. He just needs to learn the defensive end. And if you listen to his interviews, he knows that. And if you come to New York with Thibodeau and Kenny Payne and Woodson, he going to learn how to play some defense now. Okay. So for our situation, and not only that, Toppin is from New York. He's not going to be scared in New York. So I like Toppin. I like Vassell the best because the boy is 20 years old. I could see him becoming an all-star. Vassell, I'm very high on him. But I like Toppin too. And if we can get both of them, whoa, that's good. You know what I mean? So let's get as many picks as we can. But then there's other players, down later in the draft, like your Desmond Baines. I like Trey Jones. A lot of y'all high on Kyra Lewis because he's quick and all that. Trey Jones plays that defense, baby. He plays that defense for us. We need to start there. So, we might have games that's 88, 96. And that's all right. That's all right because that's what's happening when you first, not only one more thing, I don't want to make this too long, but one more thing. When you exert energy on the defensive end, it's going to affect your offense because you don't have as much energy, right? So you're not going to shoot as well, even if you are a good shooter, because of the energy that you have to exert on the defensive end. The greatest players are able to do on both sides, like your LeBrons and your Giannis's and your Kobe's when he was playing. They could do it on both sides of the ball. Okay. That's what makes them who they are. Right. That's why I'm not as high on James Harden as everybody is, because James Harden can give crap on the defensive end. He does everything offensive. He can put up all world numbers offensively, but how many championships has Houston won? You understand? So, but Russell Westbrook, that boy, but he brings it on both ends at a high tilt. Okay. That's what you want. So, but expect the Knicks to struggle offensively to begin this year as they're getting the defensive sets in. Expect the lower scoring games unless they just get one of these shooters that's lights out regardless. If they do that, then that's going to be better. But I'm expecting low scoring games, low shooting percentage, but winning ugly games because of the defense, the eliteness on the defense that we already have the foundation for, that Thibodeau is going to exploit and make better. And as far as offensively, I'm not worried about Thibodeau there either. The thing about what people are not saying about Tom Thibodeau offensively, he basically, as a great coaches, to me, the greatest coaches work with what they have and get the most out of what they have. His teams that he has coached between Chicago and Minnesota never had elite shooting. They just did not have elite shooting. Okay. And that's why they weren't great 3-point shooting teams. Although Chicago, I have to say, played really good offense because he built offense around their strength, which was Derrick Rose. So he will work with what he has. He is not a dummy. He's smart enough to understand the 3-point shot is the big thing today. And the Knicks management knows they need to bring in some shooting. So that'll be addressed. I want to make sure though that we build in the foundation of a future champion on the defensive end. Tell me what you think. Shalom.